at times watching the film, at other times just kind of mingling around, and moments early on that come off as intentionally comedic start to get a different feeling later on in the film. When I was saying before that there's not a lot of dialogue in the film, almost none to be honest, the dialogue that is there, it's all important because it gives new context to certain situations. Like I'm talking about with the gentleman who was wandering around the cinema, who was having trouble watching the film in very humorous moments. And there's a line about halfway through the film that starts to give a different context as to what's going on. And it's not a film that's necessarily one you can spoil because it's not about the plot. It's more about the overall haunting vibe of the cinema. But I think it will give different context, especially if you know that if you know something going into the film. It may not change your overall opinion on the film, but I think it will give new light to certain situations in the film. It's primarily those two characters that we follow around mostly. The film has very long sequences of the camera will stay fixated. Every shot in this film is centered. It's on a tripod the whole time. And it gives the film a fly on the wall kind of quality. And I'm not familiar with the. I think this is the only film by Mingling Tsai that I've seen. Now I've tried to watch. I don't know if I couldn't remember if I wasn't able to watch it or if I just didn't get around to watching it. He did the film The Hole from 1998, which actually I think somebody brought up recently to me. Funny enough, kind of weird how that all comes together, but. It's just a very meditative film. You really start to lose yourself in the cinema itself, in the different situations. We follow another character who is an older man, and he's very emotional watching the film, and we don't quite know why until the end of the film. Another instance where the dialogue is important and gives recontextualization to what we've seen. And it's interesting where I never got a full sense of just how large the cinema was. There is one great shot at the end that does sort of show the vacant auditorium, but there are times in the film where it seems like what's the word I'm looking for? It seems like characters kind of go in and out, where we follow at times this young child who's watching the film and these two girls who are chewing loudly, and it feels like different showings. It feels like they're not all even in the same screening, which makes for a very interesting way to view the film, kind of like you're wandering in and out of these situations, and time seems kind of unimportant, because if you're the kind of viewer who you're going to watch a film and it's over, you go, I don't know what was the point of that, then you're not going to really get much out of the film, you know. It's a film that you really have to stick with and you really have to surrender yourself to, and I think the best way to view this is in a cinema. Of course, it gives very meta kind of quality to it, where you as an audience are watching this audience watch this film and really start to feel yourself get more and more invested into this location. And I believe this was a real cinema that was demolished soon after. But the look of it, man, is really cool. I have a real fixation on cinemas themselves and different cinemas around the world. And this was such a cool looking place, man. It's got these little machines in the lobby. There's one great part where one of the characters uses one of those machines that you put like a coin in and it tells you your fortune or something like that, which was interesting. I never knew one that asked for your blood type. You know, I think I've seen one in like a mall or something like that, but it's just one of these things where it's totally just, if you're like me and you love interiors of cinemas and you love like, man, I just eat that stuff up, man. That could just be a me thing, but this film, I would have loved to have been in the cinema. And there's a lot of great moments too that feel almost otherworldly. There's a great part where the guy in the green shirt, starts to wander around in like one of the back rooms, and there's other people there for some reason, and it's humorous because there's all this space, and but still it feels cramped and like he's in the way or something, and the way that sequence ends, it starts to recontextualize some of the film and his character. And when it was over, man, there's also almost no, I don't believe there's any score in the film until the end. The song that plays, that the lyrics weave back into the overall point of the film. But this was just one that I completely loved, man. This is what it means, man. This is a totally, when people say film is a visual medium, you can't, there's no way you could replicate this in any other form, man. There's nothing you could do that could replicate the power of this film in any other art form, and that's why film is the greatest art form. Just this film, watching just these long takes, man, of just these sequences go on for what feels like 2-3 minutes at a time, and oftentimes, sometimes there's not even a character on the screen. You're just wondering, I've read some stuff about the film. Some people say how it connects to like early silent films and stuff, and I'm sure there's more you could read into that. I didn't look up any interviews with the filmmaker, and I didn't I don't have any of his other work to compare it to, but it's a very quiet film. It's one that you see it, you really gotta just see it in the right environment. If you watch it at home, man, I can't stress enough. You gotta just completely allow yourself to get into the film, because anything, I mean, any sort of there's any sort of loud noise will just take you right out of it. And I think once you allow yourself to be put into the film and be transfixed, I should say, into the sequences, then you're in for a really incredible film. This was one of the best films I've seen this year, and it's one that I'm very interested to pick up the Blu-ray. Now, I'm curious if this will get a 4K, maybe from Criterion or one of the companies here. I noticed that a lot of times when, whenever there's a 4K restoration, usually there's a Blu-ray of it at some point. I remember I think the Seventh Seal and In the Mood for Love both got 4K restorations, and both of those have European 4Ks out now. And the 4K of Inland Empire just did a tour around, and I believe that is coming to 4K Blu-ray from Criterion soon. Whoever puts this out, man, I mean, this film, I'm gonna hold out for the 4K of it. Hopefully one will come, and if not, I'll just import I don't know what company put out that Blu-ray, or at least I don't know the name of the company. I think they're associated with Arrow, because Arrow UK had a sale recently, and a lot of those titles from that label were on there. So I don't know if they're an affiliate or what, but they have gosh, that's gonna really bother me what that company name is, man. They have a lot of great films under their belt, man. They just put out Coach to Vienna, and they have stuff like Loves of a Blonde, which is actually another film that needs a Blu-ray. Jeez Louise, man, I got that Criterion DVD. That's a really phenomenal Milos Forman film. But Goodbye Dragon Inn, I mean, I thought it was a must-watch, man. It won't be for everybody. You really have to put yourself into the film, and you gotta just walk in knowing that you're gonna be a member of the cinema in the film, man. You're gonna be the one, almost like a ghostly presence watching over it, And if you're gonna be sitting there waiting for some big plot turn or big plot revelation, you're gonna be disappointed. Then this won't be the film for you. But if you're able to appreciate the quiet art and quiet, comforting, cozy in a way, parts of cinema, then this is one that I think somebody smarter than me could probably put it better into words, the effect of this film. But this is truly a must-see, and one of the best films that I've seen of recent memory and of this year. This is a film totally up my alley, and it kind of made me recontextualize. I've used that word quite a few times this episode. The theatrical experience, and why the theatrical experience I think is so important, because I think cinemas have gotten this kind of reputation, man, of a negative space of, when you tell somebody about theatrical experiences, we tend to focus on the negative aspects and the negative experiences, and of course there are. I mean, I think we've all had our share of poor theater experiences that have deterred our enjoyment of the film or films, but the important ones, the good ones and the important ones, I think, overshadow those greatly. Maybe not to everybody, but for me it does, undoubtedly. I forgot to silence my phone. I apologize there. How unprofessional of me. because watching this film in a cinema, and I should also say that earlier this week in a film that I probably should have talked about. That's all right. Maybe we have time, I'll get to it. But I also went and saw another 4K restoration of Pather Panchali, which was a film that I had never seen before and was also a terrific film. I'm looking forward to seeing A Paragito next week and A Pur Sansar in 2 weeks as part of the Apu trilogy. All new 4K restorations. And seeing these films in both the same week, Goodbye Dragon Inn and Pather Panchali, I apologize, it really kind of gave this communal sense of everybody in this theater allowing themselves to give into a film. Where you watch a film at home, man, and obviously that's how we all of us watch the majority of our films. I don't, unless you're somebody who only watches films theatrically. If that's the case, you're going to be missing out on some good films, but it's not my place or my right to tell anybody how to live their life or do what they want to do, as long as they're not hurting themselves or anybody else. But I think seeing these films in a setting like that kind of gives you a new perspective on the film. I think even more so than a drive-in, because I have more of a fondness for a theatrical setting than I do at a drive-in. Whereas a theatrical setting, when you get a good one, it's the perfect experience, man. The screen, the sound. I mean, I'm not saying that every time is going to be good, but I think it allows me to be more forgiving on some films, because I'm able to fully take in the experience more. And I remember when during COVID there was a lot of talk of a lot of big films going directly to streaming. There was that whole Warner Brothers deal where they were putting their films on HBO Max same day as theatrically. And it was a bit troubling, man, because when you have films and when you have filmmakers where their films are meant to be seen theatrically, and they're seen on even a really good TV. I don't think even the best home theater setup will ever top a theatrical setup. I'm sorry. There's nothing that even comes remotely close. And it's fine. I mean, obviously you can't, I mean, unless you own a cinema, you can show whatever you want. Hey man, you do you. But when Dune came out, that was one that I remember hearing people say, "Oh, I'll just watch on HBO," and I just thought, man, you just aren't even appreciating the craft of this film. You're really not. I mean, unless it's a thing where you were sick and you couldn't physically make it to the cinema. But if you had the option to go to the cinema and you decided to watch it at home, man, I just don't think you appreciate the artistry, man. I really don't think you do. I mean, and the thing is, when Dune came out, man, that was later in the year, so it's not even an issue of the cinema might not be open. Like, I understand if the cinema still wasn't open, which at that point seems kind of strange. I don't know why it wouldn't be. But, sorry, I'm going to have a drink really quick. Hold on. But, when it was in the middle of the pandemic, when cinemas were starting to open back up, I was still making a point to go to the cinema. There was only one cinema open. It was a locally owned one about an hour away. And I drove each time to go there. So I was driving an hour there and back. And I saw many of films there, new and old films. The first film I actually saw back in the cinema was Casablanca, which was just such a beautiful experience, being in a cinema again for the first time in some time. And I also saw new films that were getting released. Unhinged, Tenet, I actually saw twice. And actually, Tenet's a good example, too, of just a film that was made to be seen theatrically. And I don't know. I look at the experiences of going to the cinema, and yeah, you're going to have a lot of bad ones. Sure, you get enough people in an environment together, and it's going to be more difficult to get an ideal experience. But I just think back to this week seeing Goodbye Dragon Inn and Pather Panchali, and how much the audience was into these films without it being like a big, like even a lot of jokes in Pather Panchali that maybe I wouldn't have reacted to at home, because people are more willing to react in a public environment. It kind of puts things into perspective of just people, these strangers coming together for this communal religious experience of watching the film. And you know, you're going out of your way to a cinema, you're spending your time, your money, your effort to leave your house, and I think you're going to be more invested in a film like this. So I think a documentary that really kind of changed my perspective on theatrical experiences was one that I'm blanking on the name of right now. I think it was called 42nd Street Memories, and it was a theatrical. I'm sorry, it was a feature length documentary about 42nd Street, and primarily about a lot of the theaters, the films, like a lot of the peep shows, the sex shows that were going on, places like Show World that had a lot of pornographic, they had like a lot of models and porn actresses there and stuff, and a lot of the films there, and that was a documentary that really changed my opinion on the theatrical experience, because there was a point, man, where I was very picky about going to the theater, where I hated noise at all. I hated people reacting to a film. I hated any kind of rapping of crackling of like rappers and stuff and eating, and I never got popcorn at the cinema. In fact, I still don't get popcorn, but I'm just saying it was these little things that I just could not. I didn't have the focus or the strength to separate myself and get into the film, and more times than not, it gave me a bad experience. But watching this documentary, the stories that are told about the wild experiences going to see these films, I mean, you go and just the craziness of some of these showings, and just the strange people you'd see in the auditoriums, and the deals that are going down, and people hiding out, or people having sex, or just these just, I mean, you're gonna go to one of these 42nd Street theaters. I mean, that doesn't matter if you're going to see, you know, a martial arts film or a Buñuel film, man. You're gonna get the same kind of audience. You know, you're gonna get some pretty wild characters in there. And it kind of made me think about, you know what, man, if I can separate if these people can go to the cinema amongst all this wildness and go see these films, then I think I can too. And it took some time, but I've successfully reached that point where I am fully able to not be distracted while I am in a film. I mean, obviously, I don't talk during a film, and whenever I go to the cinema to see a film with anybody, I make a point to let them know without being rude. I'm not gonna tolerate any talking, man. I don't. And people who I've been to the cinema with who do talk, I don't go to movies with anymore. I draw my line. You can say that's me being what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe stuck up in a way. But when I'm at the cinema, man, I'm not there to have a conversation. I'm there to watch the film, and that's it. I don't care what kind of film we're seeing, man. I have a no talking, low tolerance for that. But if I hear whispers and stuff there and that or whatever, you know, if it ever gets really bad, man, I just move my seat. That's all it is, man. I don't make a big deal out of it. There's been a couple times where some people were whispering or flat out talking, and I just move my seat to a different spot, and that's it, man. It can be a bit more difficult if it's a very packed theater. That's maybe one thing, and maybe you try to find any spot you can. But especially going to the cinema by yourself, it's very easy to just find a spot, man. I always sit towards the front because I'm away from an audience, and I'm less inclined to hear noises like that. But I'm able to watch these films in a theater, man, and especially watching them with an audience kind of gives you new perspective and light on it. This everybody is there in the theater to enjoy a film, and I think recently I saw a film from 1981 called Thrilling Bloody Sword, which is a very wild martial arts film that I'd never seen before, one that I never knew anybody who had seen before, and it was one of the best experiences I had in the cinema, because it was a wild martial arts film, but people were getting into it at the right times. You know, when there was moments that were a bit humorous, the audience was really reacting, or if there's moments that were questionable, and you go, "What is going on, man?" It made it that much better. Where I don't think you could get that experience at home, and I think it's the thing, man, of just the theatrical experience. You can look at it at the negatives, but the positives, man, the almost religious type experience of watching a film at a cinema, I don't think there's anything like it, man. Actually, today I'm going to see the new film Memoria, from the director of films like Uncle Boonmee, and whose name I cannot pronounce. I've tried to pronounce it. I'm not even Appa something, man. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But that's a film that's only being shown theatrically, which, I mean, they say will never be released on VOD or at home. But, I mean, we'll see about that. I don't truly believe that will be the case. But Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But that's a film that the director has said he can't imagine people watching at home, and I wholeheartedly respect that. It's sort of like when the pandemic was happening. And Christopher Nolan was really adamant about people seeing Tenet in a cinema. I remember people were kind of, I don't know, man. Some of the people are kind of making fun of him for seeing it in the theater, and I kind of have to wonder if they even like film at all because, Nolan's a guy who I love his films, man, and I'm no fanboy or anything like that, but he's a filmmaker who I see somebody who has these budgets and wants to who is very ambitious with his work and wants to, even if I don't love all of his films, I respect the originality and I respect the risk taking. So when I see people going like, oh, I watched, just to spite Nolan, I watched Tenet on, on my phone or something like that. It's like, these people don't even like film. They may think they do, but they don't because here's here's an artist, man, who wants to use film the best medium as he can. And if these people kind of gawk at that and laugh at it, it's just like, man, I don't even think you like movies, or at least maybe you think you do. I mean, I'm not saying that if you don't agree with Nolan, you don't like movies. That's a ridiculous thing to say. And obviously, I don't know you. I don't know everybody's circumstances. But people who are quick to laugh at that, I just thought, man, I kind of question if you even like some of these movies, man. And that's regardless if you even like the film or not. I don't really care about that. Whether you like the film or not is besides the point. But somebody like Nolan who wants to take these kind of risks and use the theatrical setting as something more, who wants to use IMAX as something more, which unfortunately the IMAX closest to me is closing down since the pandemic. So I had to travel. What was great about this IMAX was that it was an IMAX of its own. It was connected to a restaurant, weirdly enough, but it was actually a building meant to be just an IMAX. Whereas when I originally saw Tenet, I had to travel about an hour out of the way to a IMAX that was connected to a cinema. So it wasn't a true IMAX experience, but it was very close. And that's when I saw it again at the local cinema that was about an hour away. And that's a film that I also have since watched on 4K at home, and it was great in all three mediums, but untouchable in a theatrical setting. But I just wanted to spend this time kind of talking about why it's important, man. I mean, I know we're at a point now where every film is available at your fingertips and all that. Nice, great, but I think the theatrical experience is so important. And there's a line kind of bringing this episode full circle. There's a line at the end of Goodbye Dragon Inn that sums up the whole film, and I think can sum up the entire experience of why it's important to support the cinemas and support, especially locally owned cinemas, man, because a lot of those make their money off concessions or off memberships, and less so about licensing the films. And I think it's just so important, man. I never want to live in a world where cinemas aren't available or aren't around, because there's that discussion of when theatrical films were coming to HBO and stuff. I tell you, I have HBO Max, but every film I wanted to see that, except for one, which was at the beginning, which I do regret that I didn't go see at the cinema. It was just a film that I don't even know why I didn't go see at the cinema. But that was the only one. It was at the beginning, but the rest of them, even if it was on HBO, I went to the cinema to go see it, man, because it is important. And I think the discussion of will cinemas be around when these films get on HBO or get available on streaming, in fact, I just saw the new Firestarter last night, and I see an ad today that's available on Peacock. And I don't have Peacock, and I wouldn't sign up for a membership, or I wouldn't get a free trial just to watch it either, man. Even though it's a film that I wasn't particularly a fan of, I'm glad I went to the cinema to see it because it wouldn't be the same at home. I'm sorry, man, and I know it's not easy for everybody to make it out to the cinema, man. People have different circumstances, have families, money can be tight, and I understand that, man. And I don't want to fault anybody for watching something at home. I'm saying more so if you have the option to, if you're somebody who can't get out of the house and you see that a new film is available for streaming, like a new theatrical film, then yeah, man, go for it. Like I said, it's not my place to tell anybody how to live their life or do what they want to do, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else. I mean, you're put on this earth to do what you want, and whether I agree or disagree with that, you do you, man. That's what life's all about. I'm talking more so people who are who have the ability and option, but choose not to watch at home. Watch a film like Tenet or Dune at home. I just can't even imagine that. It's almost like a disservice to the filmmaking and the craft of filmmaking as well. I find it very gross, but that's just me. I'm just me. I can only speak for myself, and I'm only going to speak for myself. I will always go to the cinema, and the point I was getting at is the discussion of whether or not cinemas will be around, whatever happens, man. I will always always support the cinema, no matter how many poor experiences I have, or the good ones vastly outweigh the bad ones. And the experiences that I get watching a film like Goodbye Dragon Inn, or Pather Panchali, or Thrilling Bloody Sword, or these films. I know these are all older films, but I'm just saying that communal experience I think is untouchable at home. And that's all. Like, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent like this. I should have talked about another film, but I just wanted to kind of talk about what's been on my mind in terms of theaters lately after seeing Goodbye Dragon Inn. And you may totally disagree with me, man. You may think that I'm totally full of crap, and that's totally okay, man. You know, I'm no authority. I'm only speaking for myself, and I apologize if I made kind of bold statements about whether or not people, you know, whatever, man. I'm a dummy. I just kind of talk my ass off, but or talk out of my ass, I should say. I'm just me, man. I'm only gonna speak for myself. But anyways, man, that's all I got this week. I got 2 minutes left to kill, but we're going to cut it a little bit early. So anyways, man, I hope you guys are all doing good this week. It's a beautiful day out here, and I hope you take full advantage of it, whether you're doing, reading, writing, or watching, which is what I'll be doing, or you're meeting up and seeing people and hopefully having productive encounters and are not wasting the day away. Or if you want to waste the day away, that's totally okay too, man. And do what you want to do in your life and enjoy your life, because you only got one of them, man, unless you're a cat. Then you got a couple more. But anyways, man, bad joke. I hope you guys will join me next week for some more discussion on cinema. I hope you are all doing well, and I'm looking forward to hearing from any of you, and looking forward to you coming back for another episode. That's all I got. Goodbye, everybody.